But so far today on day 2, it's been pretty solid for the US of A.
Pia Filler 8-7 down now against Talal Abdullah Shaheen. As Tyler Styer starts us off here.
And he's a guy that usually figures out the break. But again, and the reminder about this is you can figure it out, but it's just still never going to be perfect. You got a lot of cue ball movement. It's just all about who's going to break the best overall.
Tyler Styer, born on New Year's Day, 1995, so he's 27 years of age now, from Wisconsin. Has been a winner of the Kremlin Cup. He's been in and out of the Moscone Cup team in recent years.
Kind of surveying the rack here, and really just has to make a decision on the 4, how he wants to get on the 4 to get on to a little bit of a covered up 6 ball. It looks like he's going to play from underneath, lay this cue ball on that left side rail to attack on that pink 4. 6 is cuttable from some places, so no reason to panic there. And even if Tyler was to play a really nice match here and win, you know, 9-0, 9-1, we're still going to have a much slower match, you would figure, than the last with Joshua Filler. Tyler definitely a player that takes his time. He's okay here. He's just going to kind of stun draw out as much to the center of the table as he can afford. Can't overrun. Don't think he's going to go forward here. I kind of felt like you would cheat the pocket here on the 4 a little bit and help the cue ball movement. Well, looks like maybe he's following his ball between the 6-9. Oh, he's going to bump the 6, which at that speed and the way they laid, very hard to have too much go wrong. Looks like he comes 2 rails between the 8 and 9 for the 7 up in the upper left. And beyond looking at the Moscone Cup, Michael, I think Tyler's in a position he wants to have a little better results overall than he's had this year so far. He's had some good matches. He's had some cashes, of course, but no real deep runs in the 9-ball events.
Yeah, absolutely correct, but you couldn't ask for a better start than this. Fine opening rack for Tyler Styer. He leads Marco Dorenburg 1-0. Sanyan Pelovanovic now on the hill against Tony Drago at 8-4. Shane Wolford also in that round in the early stages against Jonas Saska of Estonia. That one is 1-all. So many Estonian players around now. It's not a particularly big country. Sander Kont, we saw on the main table earlier, showing a lot of potential, just 17 years of age.
Do we know if Dennis Grabber came back in that match in the first round?
I'm trying to keep up with all the results here. I'm just looking at that right now. I know he was struggling.
I think when I left earlier, he was trailing 7-5. He's going to love these results. A lot of zigzag on the cue ball, but a very nice shot here to start on the 2. Looks like he should stay away from the 3 in the side, but it's okay if he chooses to do that. The 3 in the corner, I think, is a little better percentage play. Just a matter of moving the cue ball off the 3 to the get to the 4. Straight in here, and should just screw the cue ball back a little bit for the 4.
Yeah, Dennis Grabber, that match we were keeping an eye on earlier, did turn it round. Beat Calvin Washburn 9-7. We'll now play Sebastian Stab of Germany.
Kind of cut the 3 a little to the left side of the pocket so the cue ball fell a little near the rail. Shouldn't be a problem. I think he has a bit of an angle. Probably forces the cue ball to the left side rail and then up towards the 5. May just draw out of this.
Well, it's been a familiar position for him so far in this match. Dorenberg has had time to get pretty comfortable in that chair. This has been a fine start from Styer. They both won their opening matches 9-1. Styer against Daniel Sturz and Dorenberg against Rainer Biermann in an all-German clash. Incidentally, all matches in that first round are now either completed or underway. A lot to follow in these early days. You can have effectively 3 different rounds in progress all at the same time.
Okay, you can't get ideal here on the 7, so maybe back where the cue ball's at now would be okay. It's got a little bit awkward. Should be okay. Should catch a couple rails here coming across. Killed the cue ball nicely. So Tyler looks very comfortable, and a lot of these guys can weigh on that first round match. And I like the format. I like what they've done with the schedule, getting these guys where they play their first round and they don't wait too long before they get back in the grease.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's picked up the momentum of that comfortable win he had earlier. And Tyler Styer making a wonderful start here, playing very nicely, and he leads Marco Dorenburg 2-0. Now, those first round matches we were keeping an eye on. Pia Filler has gone hill now with Talal Abdullah Shaheen, trying to complete a Filler double after Joshua's comfortable win. And Francisco Sanchez Ruiz hasn't been comfortable, but he is now leading 6-4 against Ion Ladany of Romania, another country that seems to be producing a number of players at the moment. So that's in the first round. This effectively is in the second. Mika Immonen also in that round, leading 6-2 now against Veronica Ivanovskaya. Shane Wolford 2-1 up on Eunice Saska. And Loho Sum did so well at the World Masters, leading 6-3 now against Ratapol Sasman of Thailand.
Looks like a couple kicks on the one. It's going to end that string of a couple racks run from the break to open this match for Tyler Styer. So a little bit more tactical game here we'll see in game number 3. And an interesting note, Shane Wolford's playing with borrowed cues, Michael. His cues are still a little bit in limbo.
I was going to say, anyone who's been doing much international travel this year, that's sort of the theme of the summer of 2022 is missing baggage. But that's the last thing you want to lose, isn't it? You'd rather every one of your clothes and everything else went missing than your cue.
Yeah, I messaged him yesterday, and he got a little report on his stuff, but still hasn't made its way to Fulda. I believe they do think it's in Frankfurt, so he'll continue on in the tournament, and hopefully his equipment will show up.
I know it's been a big problem for golfers this summer. Shane Lowry, the former Open champion, one example. He arrived at a venue, I think it was last week. His clubs didn't make the journey with him. He did get them eventually. But these are the pitfalls of international travel at the moment as the world tries to get itself back on some sort of even keel in that regard after COVID. And the worst of COVID anyway.
Yeah, a little subtle swerve shot here. Or a jump. You could play the jump. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe a jump bank cross side. The swerve shot's pretty easy, it looks like, though, to catch the bottom of the one, send the one up table, maybe track the cue ball a couple rails behind the 3 and 7.
Not a familiar name, as we've said. He did get to the last 32 of a Euro Tour event earlier this year, so that's a decent enough sign.
Yeah, very decent, actually, and probably, or most likely, doesn't make all the Euro events, but been pretty impressed with the German players that aren't the big names so far. A lot of quality. Well, you could see the one, so that was an interesting play there. I'm not really sure what he was trying, to be honest with you, but maybe just run the cue ball up off the 6. Maybe trying to get some separation between the 1 and the cue ball. Now, the bank does go. It's playable. He's kind of got to roll it, though, so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes off the 1, placing the cue ball down on the bottom rail behind the purple 5. Letting the 1 just kind of roam out in the center of the table. Yeah, kind of a little heavy on the speed, but thing is, when your opponent's been sitting, make him earn that first shot. Even if he didn't get the snooker here, Marco's got to come with a long, tough shot on the 1. If he can see the right side of the 1, he may pass on offense here and kind of bank the 1 straight up and down the table, try to run the cue ball a couple rails behind the 3-7 maybe. Heard a nice applause in the background. I kind of feel like it's a PF filler.
That's
applause.
exactly what I was thinking, yeah. We'll try to confirm that. It was a hometown roar, wasn't it? Well, not literally hometown, but home country roar, let's put it that way. And indeed, Pia Filler has won 9-8 against Talal Abdullah Shaheen. So we can assume that was what the roar was for. And she will now play Ramazan Akdag of Turkey in the next round.
Well, with the cue elevated here, definitely going offensive. May have fluked it. No, and took a long time. Of course, I don't know Marco, but took a long time not only to make a decision there, but just what I thought was kind of an obvious decision, really. But
well, it must be frustrating at the moment. He's out there. It's a big occasion for him, playing in his home country on the main table against a well-known Moscone Cup player. And he just wants to get a foothold, just get into the match, get chance to build some sort of rhythm, and hasn't really been given that opportunity yet.
All right, looks like to help the cue ball out, he's not going to play the short pocket on the one, playing the one in the corner. Gotta draw this ball or kind of stun it by the 7 and run it a couple rails almost into the position it's in now. That would be ideal. And Styer has looked very good so far.
Just going back to Pia Filler, if she wins her next match, do you know who she could play in the round after that?
Her husband, maybe?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not sure either of them would want that, but we'd love it.
Yeah, we'd love it. I don't think they would mind it. I mean, of course, they'd like to both have a chance to qualify in that final 64, but again, something they'll talk about for a long time if it gets to happen, right?
Kind of feel it's going to happen at some point,
right?
You know, because Pia comes to these events. She wins matches. It's not an unusual thing for that to happen. So at some point, you have to feel they will square up. And they're so used to playing each other. I know they practice together. But Pia, of course, is such a great supporter of Josh when he's playing in big matches that if they did play each other, out of habit, she might find herself cheering when he plays the great shots. Anyway, that's something which may or may not happen a little later in the tournament. What is happening right now is a nice start here from Tyler Styer.
And I'll tell you, the good thing for Styer is he's had to make a variety of shots in just a few games and has been very solid so far on all of them. Getting the cue ball out nicely to the center of the table. Can come one rail at the 8. Could go 2 rails, but on the slick table, I'll probably stay away from that. Be a little aggressive with the cue ball. You don't want to shoot the 8 from like the head string area. But of course, you got to be mindful of the 9.
So the simplest of 9s. Wasn't a run out from the break this time. But still dominant stuff from Tyler Styer. Still a relatively early stage, but he's in total control here. He leads Marco Dorenburg by 3 racks to 0. Still keeping an eye on that match in the previous round involving Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. He's starting to maybe pull away a bit against Ion Ladany of Romania. He's won the 11th rack now to go 7-4 in front, having such a good year and, of course, a chance that he could get his Moscone Cup place under lock and key this week with a good run. One place will be decided on both teams. Well, we know Shane Van Boning has already got it clinched. From the American point of view, he can't be caught, but the race for the first spot on the European team is between FSR and Joshua Filler. So that's something to follow as the week goes on. Mika Immonen now leading 7-3 in this round against Veronika Ivanovskaya. And Shane Wolford has just won rack 5 to go 3-2 up on Jonas Saska. Sanyin Pelovanovic has closed it out against Tony Drago. He's won 9-4 And he had 4 breaking runs in that match, Jeremy. That's impressive going. Not seen that from many players in this format.
That's good for Sanjin as well, because I watched a little of his first match and it seemed like he was a little frustrated with the break at times. Another one, young players that, you know, this may be a little bit new to them, really kind of making their career, or at least the beginning of their career, where the break wasn't so difficult. And the thing is, I mean, it's always going to be a huge part of the game. But you should definitely distinguish yourself, I think, with the break shot a little bit. Kind of like, you know, PGA Tours changed a little bit in pro golf, where almost all of them hit it pretty long. But there should be an advantage, I think, for someone who breaks the balls a little better than others.
Yeah, and if Shane Wolford wins that match, he'll play Pelovanovic in the winner's qualification round. How far short do you feel, Jeremy, Tyler Styer has fallen so far in his career of his potential? Because when he came along, we saw this was a young player, clearly a lot of talent. So how far away do you feel he's been from actually getting the results that would match that talent?
Well, it doesn't take much to turn the corner. A lot of people back in the States talk about his technique, and of course, he has a great technique. Just sometimes you can get in a little bit of a rut, and you know, I don't think he's that far away from it. You know, this year he hadn't had the results at times, but he also has lost a lot of close matches. So it can fool you a little bit, but I think he would tell you he needs to improve a little, and maybe in the bigger moments more than the first and second round kind of parts of the tournament.
You obviously know him a lot better than I do, but he strikes me as someone who's quite intense at times and maybe sometimes tries a little too hard rather than just letting his talent show. Would that be fair?
Yeah, and sometimes I think on the other end of that, or maybe not completely on the other end, but at times I think he let his talent get in front of him, or get, you know, kind of cost him at times, really, where he kind of did some unnecessary things. I think he and I talked about a lot of times, don't try to get it all back in one shot. You know, as great as you are, as great as your technique is, you can handle a lot. So work through the rack a little more rather than try to come with a spectacular shot. You know, it's great when you pull it off, but it sure seems to cost you a lot of games and matches when it doesn't.
That's always a good sign, though, isn't it? When someone finishes a rack and then they're getting the balls out of the pockets, they just want to get on with it because they're enjoying it so much. And of course he is, because he's playing really nicely here. Thoroughly dominant and now leading 4-0. And there you can see some of the scores going through. Loho Sum, World Masters runner-up, 7-4 up now against Ratapol Sassman. Shane Wolford, we've talked about. That one is still 3-2. Mika Immonen now on the hill against Veronika Ivanovskaya. She, of course, would go over to the loser side, even if she loses that. But I hope she stays in the tournament a bit, because I love saying that name. Veronika Ivanovskaya. One of the best names in the game. Tyler Styer playing so well, and 4-0 up.
Yeah, with 3 breaking runs as well. Now slowed down with a dry break, and that again is probably the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons, is you're never going to get completely dialed in with this break format. I mean, as much as, you know, Tyler excels at the break shot in many ways, doesn't matter who you are, you're going to have some frustrations. And our first good look, at least a good shot to get started for Marco. Looks like he can get by the 6 easily to come across for the 2. The real work in the rack looks like that's pretty light there, so maybe the lack of time at the table. Fortunate he has an open pocket to the lower left, because I'm certain he was trying to get positioned for the lower right. The problem here is he needed some good position on the 3 to get to the 4. Just Gonna have to cue this with a little low right English, drawing the cue ball to the side rail, then spinning it a couple rails between the 4 and 9. Well, it looks like he's cueing it with a little left, so he's trying to stun 2 rails between the 5 and 9, maybe. Yeah.
Well, when you've been basically frozen out for the first 4 racks, a little tester like that, when you've only had a handful of shots, is not what you need. Didn't really look comfortable on the shot, did he? He was some way off with it in the end. Styer has a chance to resume what he's been doing for the whole match so far.
Okay, pretty subtle draw stroke here. Wants to get somewhat straight on the 3 if he can. Well, that was surprising. He didn't put much into that, and I'm not sure where he's going to go for position on the 4. Thought for sure he'd draw back, trying to get a bit straighter on the 3. I guess he's just going to simplify it like we talked about earlier. Cut the 3 and catch a little piece of the 7. Try and come out somewhat near the 6. And take the cut on the 4 ball. Trying to hit it as easy as he could, just not knowing how much of the 7 exactly he was going to catch, and caught it a little thinner than he wanted. Now the cue balls ran behind the green 6. Very easy kick to hit. He's going to try and play something that is a containing kick shot here. It's got to be somewhat 2 rails. Now do you come across it trying to run the cue ball back up table? You come underneath it, that offers maybe a scratch in the lower right, so. Oh, nice shot. Very nice 1 rail kick, trying to catch, half the ball somewhat. Bank it up on the side rail, trying to keep his opponent off the offensive shot. He may have snookered him. It's got to go a bit. So I think it's been the speed control for Marco so far. The 2 ball he missed, and that was a bit of an error from the speed control on the 1, and now another error with the speed on the safety.
But it becomes a vicious circle, doesn't it? Because that, in turn, makes it harder for you to stay at the table. And if you don't have time at the table, you can't adjust to the speed.
Yeah, one thing that some of these players that haven't, been in the TV setting is the table is a bit different than the outer tables. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. Look at this cut shot he's going for. He's going to lose the cue ball, maybe. No. Didn't leave a shot, though, so it should be some type of safety on the backside of the 6 with the cue ball. Almost fluked the 9. So we'll see if he can get the draw down, just tucking the cue ball behind the 6. The 4 is going to have too much speed unless it catches the 5. It did. A lot of the players get a good feel for this type of kick shot. It's all speed control. You can hit about half the ball, maybe a third of the ball, put the 4 just past the 8 with the cue ball coming to the side rail behind it like this right here. I don't know why players get such a good feel for that shot, but I see that particular one executed so many times, and still a great shot no matter what. Tyler Steyer's really come to play here on day 2 of the European Open.
Niels Feijen, man who needs no introduction, has just started out over on table 2 against Flavien Glont, but he's lost the opener. Remember, all the Table 2 action available on the Matchroom Pool YouTube channel. You can watch Table 1 on Matchroom Pool Facebook page, and it's all on Matchroom.Live. It's just so frustrating for him, isn't it? Because he's just looking for a chance to get into the match, but so often when he is getting to the table, it's just to try to contain Styer, really, and he's just not getting a chance to show what he can do.
Yeah, and Tyler has made up for the couple of mistakes he's had. Went for a difficult 4-ball, didn't leave much of a shot. Marco played a nice safety behind the 6, but Tyler played an even better kick shot. Just have to be patient, though. See if things change. Looks like he's just going to float this up towards the 8 a little bit. Take the 5 on in the upper left. And maybe that's, I know that's a simple shot, but maybe that's a better explanation of how Tyler's improving. Just go with what's there. Don't try to do too much. Almost more of what's needed versus what you want to do.
As we've said, his greatest moments have come in the Moscone Cup. His first 2 appearances were 2018 and 19, and USA won both of those, having lost all of the previous 8 prior to that. And he played a big role, and particularly in the doubles, he seemed to really adjust to that very well in those 2 years.
Well, I think if you picked out one match in 2018 after we had lost the first 2 points, he came with a big win. Ironically, the guy on table 2 against Niels Feijen in a third match cut the deficit to 2-1. Kind of settled us in a little bit, got us going at the same time, and the rest is history.
He had a chance to clinch it, actually, against Jason Shaw, who beat him, but USA did get over the line in the end.
Yeah, again, anytime you have great technique, I always think of the word simple. And here's another shot. Just keep it simple. Kill the cue ball. No reason to go back and forth. And really, when you talk about doubles, that's a big key as a guy that can keep it simple and recover from a lot of places. You're not so demanding from your partner. Oh, I really would rather be here or there with the cue ball.
The thing is, there's no greater pressure in the game than playing in the Moscone Cup, and he's shown he can handle that, so you would think he must have the ability to handle it in the big individual events. We need to see him get into the closing stages of them before we can really test that. But if he keeps playing like this, maybe he'll do so this week. Tyler Styer in total control here against a Marco Dorenburg, who just hasn't settled into the match at all yet. It's now 5-0. Francisco Sanchez Ruiz looks as though he's weathered the storm against Ion Laranyi of Romania. It was close earlier on, but as we've seen in a lot of matches actually so far in this championship, the pre-match favourite has pulled away in the closing stages, and he's now on the hill at 8-4. And worth keeping an eye on the match between Aref Awadi and Jorg Welsch, because the winner of that will play Shane van Boning in the next round, and Awadi from Kuwait is leading at the moment, but only by 5 racks to 4. Let's just have a look in at table 2. Our first look at this, Niels Feijen. Multiple MVP in the Moscone Cup. He's done it all really, hasn't he? Been around a long time, but still hungry for more success and still getting good results.
And where's Glant from? Flavian Glant?
It's Romania, that.
Romania, okay. Well, they produce some good players more lately. Got a ball in hand. I'd probably shoot the 1 and go into the 3-6 with the cue. I'll take a little bit of a thin cut on the 2, but it's either that or maybe try to play for a 3-foul situation, which we saw one of those yesterday, Michael. Not something you're going to see very often at a pro level.
Tell you what we haven't seen many of this week either is golden breaks. We had the one from Filler earlier, but that's the only one I've seen. I don't know if you've spotted any others.
No, but I think we'll see more of them now, actually, than we did prior. A lot of the times the cut break, the cue ball gets zigzagged right back across where that 9's at and gets cut in either the side or the corner.
Just while we're waiting for play to resume on table 1, so many matches to keep an eye on. Shane Wolford now 4-3 down against Jonas Saska of Estonia. That's also in this round, i.e. the round that gets you within 1 win then of a place in single elimination. And Alban Ocean is back in action now. We saw him on the main table earlier against Sandra Kont. He's now playing David Borkowski of Poland. And that one is just getting started. All the way out on table 15. Loho Sum won his match, by the way. Player from Hong Kong who's made quite a name for himself this year. He won 9-4 against Thailand's Ratapol Sasman.
Well, I can tell the Romanian player here is, I'd probably like to bet Shane Van Boning is his favorite player. Kind of emulates some of the things Shane does prior to getting down on the ball. See it so much in America. A lot of amateur players really kind of tailor their game behind SVB, and I don't blame them.
There are a lot of countries like this that you didn't really see anyone coming out of for a long time, but now you're seeing so many players, Estonia, Romania, and it seems to be a case that one player becomes particularly good, goes out and plays in some of the international events, then goes back and plays against the others, and they all raise each other's standards. Romania certainly seems to be one of those countries at the moment. And with all of these countries, I guess what they're looking for is that one big star to break through and really inspire a new generation of players from that country. Anyway, back here, Tyler Styer follows obviously in the footsteps of many great Americans of the past, including the man sitting next to me, and he's leading 5-0.
All right, this what looks like now the 2 ball's going to fall. It's going to have a great shot on the 1 to extend this lead. And, you know, a lot of these countries don't have the big sports, you know, what I consider the big sports like we do. Some of the other countries, of course, here in Europe, soccer is a huge one, right? But in America, we have, you know, 4 major sports. So a lot of these countries are looking for that world champion, and it doesn't really matter what sport it is.
Well, I know coming from a small country, and give examples of that when we had Stephen Roach, who came through and won the Tour de France and the World Championship and the Giro d'Italia in the same year. It was an amazing thing to happen in a small country. And every kid in Ireland was getting out on his bike that summer looking to emulate those feats. So what you're saying is absolutely correct. A sport that may not have become prominent in a country otherwise does so because just that one big star comes through. Well, Sean Kelly, of course, was also a leading Irish cyclist in those days. Back here, Tyler Styer pedaling away.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be just one of those events would be huge in one of those countries. You win a Tour de France. That's a pretty big, you know, stake, right?
Well, he followed on from an American. Greg LeMond had won it the year before.
Yeah, Greg LeMond. I remember that name. What did he win it? Did he win it 3 times?
Yeah, I think he won 86, 89, and 90.
Yeah, I thought it was 3. Used to actually watch that a bit. Not saying I was ever a cyclist, but for some reason that Tour de France, 24 days, right? 20, was it 20, 21 days?
I think
24?
it was longer then. I think it went on for pretty much a month. Now it's basically a 3-week event.
It's another sport that is taken on with the carbon fiber, I believe. The bicycles made a lot of them anyways, a lot of the parts, carbon fiber. See the black shafts used so much in pool now.
News of Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. I can tell you he's got the job done against Jon Laragne. He's won 9-4. And still a few matches to go in that very first round. But that's pretty much it now in terms of the very big names, with FSR getting through. He doesn't yet know who he'll play. At the moment, it looks like being Christian Prager of Germany, although he's only 7-6 in front against Alexander Yermikimov from Estonia. Tell you what, trying to win the Estonian championship must be hard with all these guys coming through these days.
Well, I think they see other countries doing it, right? Why not? Why not them? Poland's been such a conversation piece the last several years, and even more Polish players showing up. It seems like day in, day out. I know I'm a little biased, but I still think there's the most talent really is in America still. It's just a matter of getting the structure with it. I think all the rooms we have and all the week in, week out pool, there's no reason why we shouldn't be really on top as a whole.
I think maybe something that counts against you in terms of bringing through young players is the sheer size of the country. That maybe in a smaller country, if you get a pocket of good players coming through, they're geographically close to each other, they can play each other a lot, but that's harder to achieve in America. You might be a really good player, but there might not be any other good players even within your state to play against.
That's right. And just learn from, and you know, the former generations that we had of so many great players, you know, they do all they can, but they also have to, most of them have gone on to some type of other business, pool room owners and whatnot, different lives now. But if I could go state to state and probably name 2 or 3 great players. Now some of them may be older, but those are also still players that the young can learn from.
Well, the state of Wisconsin has only ever produced one Moscone Cup player. And at the moment, it feels like we're watching a practice session of his, because Tyler Styer is about as dominant as we've seen anyone so far in this championship. Not quite getting through with the same speed we saw from Joshua Filler earlier on this table, but nevertheless just as effective in its own way. Tyler Styer now leads Marco Dorenburg 6-0. Shane Wolford now 5-3 down to Eunice Saska. And that's what has been and what is still to come on table 1 today. Skylar Woodward will be up next against Khalid Al Ghamdi of Saudi Arabia, who did win a few matches at the US Open last year, albeit not against that level of opposition, so we'll see what he has got when he takes on the American. Joshua Filler through very comfortably, as we were saying. Started the match with a golden break and went from there. Albin Ocean only won 9-4 in his match against the young teenager, Kont, but pretty much played a flawless match, didn't really do anything wrong. Very high standard in that. And of course, Tony Drago winning earlier today, although he has since been sent over to the loser's side. Styer needs 3 more racks for the match here.
And he's had a bit of a variety on the break shot. The more these players play matches, they'll get more tuned in, of course, with that break. But so far, what I like that I'm seeing from Tyler, it's a really one shot at a time process so far in this match. Hasn't gotten ahead of himself. Waiting for the referee to come remove the template.
I think what you were saying there, Jeremy, about there being actually a lot of talent in America, and I think you went so far as to say there's probably more there than anywhere else in the world. The thing is, most people in Europe are probably pleased to hear that, because they don't want the Moscone Cup to evolve into a thing that Europe are just winning it nearly every year. They want to see the Americans come through and be more competitive. So it's good news for everyone if that now comes to fruition.
Yeah, well, I think the last few years we've had some junior tours, solid junior tours that are growing, and you can easily see the interest in the game. And I think also a lot of the pros are recognizing it's on us to get that game advanced in America. And the support from the amateur side of things, the parents or even just players in pool rooms seeing the juniors play so well at a young age, that's a big, it's just a key part of it, I think. It looks like he's going to maybe set up for a kiss shot here off the 4 to the 5. Maybe a safety, maybe a cross-corner bank. Niels Feijen just had a golden break while we were discussing a few things.
Yeah, 2-1 up now against Flavien Glont, having lost the opening rack.
And that's got to slow down just a little bit. Should be just about right, I think, to play the kiss shot. Could play the bank, I guess, but the kiss shot looks on to me, and you'll just push the 4 open to play the 4 up long by the 6th in the next shot.
It's funny how these things go, isn't it? At the very moment that we were sitting here talking about the new talent coming through in the States, one of the players at the forefront of that, Shane Wolford, was falling even further behind against Jonas Saska, who now leads him 6-3.
Yeah, and he's borrowed some very similar equipment, but, you know, very similar equipment is fine until you make a few mistakes. And then you may start to question, well, is this tip a little different? Is the shape a little different? The weight's a little different. But also maybe didn't sleep as well last night, knowing his cues haven't arrived yet.
Yeah, all round, it's just something you can do without, isn't it?
Yeah,
Riku Rompainen, 14 years of age, sent over to the loser's side in a hill-hill finish earlier. And he's up against his fellow Finnish player, Jalo Kotonurmi. And Rompainen is leading 7-6. Remember, it's just race to 8 in that round, so he needs one more.
Yeah, we talked about, was it, you said Shane Lowry's golf clubs. I think a pool cue is a little more personal than the golf clubs, in my opinion. Of course, I've never swung a golf club at the level of those guys, so I'm sure they feel all the ins and outs a little bit more than we do. All right, just a little kill stroke here on the 7.
Well, the one tiny consolation for Marco Dorenburg is that he has really got the best seat in the house to watch what has been a very accomplished performance so far from Tyler Styer. You can't imagine there's ever been a match he's played any better than this, because it would be just about impossible. He's so much in control here and leading 7-0. It's gone hill-hill now in that match between Riku Rompainen and Jalo Kotonurmi. Rompainen, who made such an impact at the UK Open in London back in May, well, he's going to have to win the next rack, or his chances of doing anything similar here will be over. That's on the loser's side. Meanwhile, Niels Feijen, back on the winner's side, is just about to go 3-1 up on Flavien Glont.
And Rico, a youngster, and we'll see another youngster in the next match with Sky Woodward. Khalid. I don't know how old he is exactly. I think maybe 18, if I remember correctly.
Tyler Styer is quite definitely 27, and he's quite definitely 7-0 up. Well, we've said Dorenberg hasn't been handed many chances to do much in this match. Here's one for him now.
Yeah, this is early stages, and of course this scoreline. Don't feel like this scratch is going to make that big a difference in the match, just because it's hard to come back with that break. But we're going to see a lot of unfortunate kisses later in this tournament that are going to have a huge impact on who wins it.
For sure, but he just wants to have something to take away, doesn't he? Just win one rack. I mean, look, it's a good experience being out there anyway, even if you don't get anything on the board. We see it so often. Players in this situation end up going through the match without winning a single rack, but clearly you want to avoid that if you can. Just give yourself a moment to take away from it.
Yeah, this is the winner side, right? So he's got more pull to play no matter what. He doesn't want to lose any confidence. Put a few together, a few nice runs.
Alban Ocean going nicely, 3-0 up against David Borkowski.
A little light on the speed there. Shouldn't be too much of a problem. Just maybe has to shoot the 6 from a little further away than he maybe wanted. Let the stroke out a bit there. Nice shot. Natural angle to run a couple cushions for the 7. Just got to make a decision. Do I want to come tight and use that left side rail as a third rail, or do I want to come long to the top rail? You don't want to just be in between. Let the cue ball float towards that upper left-hand corner pocket. It looks like he's aiming pretty thin on this. Okay, he's all right. Nice pace.
Riku Rompainen has won that hill finish against Jalo Kotonurmi, so he battles on the loser's side. And he'll play Rainer Lahr. Played for Estonia in the World Cup this year in the next round. Yeah, well, you don't like to see someone coming in this situation and going through the match without winning a single rack. And barring something extraordinary on this shot, that isn't going to happen now to Marco Dorenburg. And he will feel so much better about life now, won't he? He got his chance there. He took it well. And even a little bit of a celebration, perhaps with a hint of irony about it. 7-1 down.
Oh, interested to see him break the balls as well. You know, I'm interested to see everyone break the balls, really, and see if there's something unique or something new that we haven't put our eyes on yet.
Oliver Szolnoki of Hungary. Done well at the World Championship the last couple of years. He's won the opening rack against Patrick Mountain of Germany. So, this is the first time that we've seen Marco Dorenburg break in this match.
Heavy spin with the heavy hit on the 1, not too much of a cut, and that's where we've seen the corner ball go in the most. The guys who have really cut them, the corner ball, you just don't put enough pressure on the rack to get that corner ball in, but the ones that have broke a little more solid on the 1, kind of like Filler did in the last match. Now, can he get through at this 1 ball? If not, he's in a world of hurt. He's going to have to pocket the 1 on the rollout most likely and try and get somewhere with the cue ball, maybe using the 7. A lot of guys don't realize you're allowed to pocket the 1 on the rollout. If you call a rollout, even though you hit the 7 first. He obviously can't just roll the 8 into the 1 on the rollout, leave that easy of a shot on the 2. If he does elect to pocket the 1 or realize he can pocket the 1, he's got to run the cue ball somewhere, maybe across the table. He's trying to figure out where I can roll out on the 1, but that's just not gonna be something that he's given back. Strange situation, not one you see very often.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a situation he would have wanted to find himself in when he's not experienced being out there in these situations. It's hard to perhaps keep a clear head when you're under that much pressure, playing a leading player on the main table.
Well, he does realize he can pocket the 1, so that's good. Some players actually forget that. So he's going to move the cue ball over near where he's standing right now. And that's a solid rollout right there. He's going to have to, you know, make Tyler earn it if he does go offensive, and nothing easy on the defensive side either.
He took his time making up his mind, but in the end he did manage to keep some clear thinking and did pretty much what you had suggested.
Yeah, really nice cue ball control, trying to get it as near to that cushion as possible. And I think Tyler should take this on. It's the type of shot he should excel at, cutting this down the rail. Just got to figure out the speed he wants to go. And it looks like maybe, you know, this looks like you either got to go super light to hold position, or you got to kind of add a little bit past medium on the swing to come maybe 3 rails back and forth. He went light. Oh, he was playing the safety. He's going to give up a thin cut. Not a bad play with 2 balls there, the 9 and the 6. Just got away from him just a little bit. Now here, Marco may add a lot of side spin here, trying to go into the 6 to hold position for the 3. If he goes back and forth, he's probably going to contact the 9. That may not be a good thing. Looks like he can come 2 rails back and forth, falling in between. Oh, that's a nice stroke there. Maybe too nice.
Oh, this would be unfortunate. It's turned out okay from in the end. Okay, it's not ideal position. He's got a bit of work to do here, but round about there it looked like it might scratch. Although when you see it from that angle, it doesn't look quite so dangerous.
Well, getting from the 3 to the 4 is not easy. Probably has to play a rail first shot and kind of bleed the cue ball up table for the 4. Got a little concern at the 8, but if you end up falling behind the 8, that's just hard luck. I think that was a pretty smart shot, simplifying it. A lot of guys would have added a lot of right English to that shot, trying to get a little closer to the 4 and miss that 3 ball actually a little more often than you would think.
Well, that's very nice. He's got himself back in prime position now. And one of the attractions, I think, for players playing in a big open event like this is just that dream, that possibility that the draw might fall a certain way. You could find yourself playing a well-known player on one of the main tables. So great when it happens, but you don't want to come off feeling that you've done that and not really been involved. Well, Dorenberg won't feel that now, because at last, over these last couple of racks now, he's got some table time. He'll have some moments to take away from it. And he should now make it 2 racks in a row.
Yeah, a little bit of a cut here on the 8, but very natural and easy position on the 9. Just put maybe a quarter of a tip, half tip of right English. That way you don't flirt with the side pocket with the cue ball. You want to hit about the 3rd diamond up the right side rail.
Well, even now, the chance of winning this match looks pretty remote. Basically, it's a case of win as many racks as you can. And as you said, Jeremy, he's still got to go over and play on the loser's side, and the fact that he's managed to show a bit of something here on table 1 will send him into that match, if that is indeed to be his fate. At least still aware that he can play a bit. 7-2. Let's look at some other scores then, and Shane Wolford on the brink of defeat, because Jonas Saska is on the hill now at 8-3. That also in this round. Second match for all of these players. Oliver Szolnocki 3-0 up against Patrick Mountain. Flavien Glant has pulled one back against Niels Feijen. Now trails 3-2 as we see some of the scores going through there. Dennis Grabber came through a battle earlier. He's in another one perhaps early on. 2-0 down against Sebastian Stab. Albin Ocean, though, off to a flying start against David Borkowski of Poland. The 2-time world champion now leading by 4 racks to 0. And still some action going on in the very first round of this. But one other result I can bring you from that. Aref Awadi of Kuwait has won 9-5 against Jörg Welsch of Germany. And Awadi will now play the world champion, Shane van Boening.
And I'll tell you, we talked about, it's going to be hard for him to come back and win this match, Marco, but I don't think there's a player in the tournament that doesn't want as many reps with this new break format as they can get. It's just something you're going to get a feel for. The more often you do it, you learn a little bit here, you learn a little bit there, just to get it as good as you can. He's going to play the safety behind the 8. I may have looked at a 2-way shot with the bank on the 2 ball, but hard to argue this play, even though Tyler has kicked beautifully in this match so far.
Yeah, and as Styer sizes this one up, got to tell you, there's a great story about Aref Awadi, who I was telling you about a moment ago. He wasn't even meant to be playing in the tournament. He's over here as part of the Kuwaiti delegation. He's a good mate of Badr Al-Awadi. Then, when there was a late withdrawal, he entered the tournament 1 hour before he played. Well, at least 1 hour before play started anyway, but bottom line is he was a late entry into it, and here he is now. He's won a match, and he's going to be playing the world champion. Fantastic story.
Another perfect kick shot from Tyler Styer. Really couldn't plan it out any better. That's like 3 for 3 perfect. And I see Niels a bit struggle over there, even though he's leading 3-2. Little quick with the stroke at times. Got to settle in a bit. And I guess the man from Kuwait brought his cues just in case, maybe?
Yeah, it's a story we'll find out more about, I'm sure, ahead of his match against SVB a little later. And there is the match you were talking about over on table 2. Flavien Glant of Romania at the table against Niels Feijen, one of the most established names in the game, and one of the nicest guys you could meet as well, Niels.
think he's going to give up a shot here. It's close. Maybe a subtle swerve around the 5. Pretty decent kick shot there from Marco, trying to hold the cue ball underneath the 7. Doesn't have any angle here, though, so. And maybe at times that's the differences with a little bit the older players is coming with the long shot. I've seen Niels miss a couple of those, and, you know, being I'm a bit older than Niels, so can't compare us exactly the same, but now the guys like him, when they get control, they're so good with the cue ball, they don't have to make very many difficult shots. But when something we talk about a guy like Filler, and a beautiful swerve shot by Tyler Styer there, if you were watching, a guy like Filler, he's gonna be able to come with those long shots, or any of those younger players, and I think the break again is going to offer a little bit of that as the tournament moves on.
Talked about Styer not having produced the results in the very biggest individual events yet. He was runner-up in quite a big event in Austria last year. Not at this kind of level, but still a very strong field.
I got a little flat here. Can't quite come one rail across so easily without going all the way up the table near the 7 or even past it. Of course, he's got the stroke to be able to come 2 rails with top left English all the way past the 7 and back down for the 5. And I think that's kind of the shot, really, unless the camera's fooling me. Unfortunate roll after a miss there.
Just over on table 2, Niels Feijen, ball in hand, is eyeing up. Well, it looks like a testing 1-9 combination to go 4-2 up on Flavien Gont. And he's figured out the conundrum and taken the 6th rack to go 2 clear there.
Yeah, Marco's going to kick to the bottom rail here. Trying to come into a very heavy full hit on the pink 4. Trying to get it to the top rail. Do as best as he can not to leave an offensive shot for Tyler. And if he gets the snooker behind the 9, that's a bit of a bonus. This has gotten a bit awkward. I don't think the combination's any kind of hanger. 4's a little thin to the upper right to hold position on the 5. A little too thin to draw the ball without a possible scratch as well. So I don't know if he's attacking here, really. He may be banging the 4 around, placing the cue ball behind the 7. Yeah.
When it's as one-sided as it has been in this match, Jeremy, and particularly as it was on the way to 7-0, can it be a little difficult just to keep your focus and concentration at that maximum level? Is that one of the challenges? That you're that far in front, you're probably going to win, it's all very comfortable.
Yeah, I always stem a lot of those answers back to how prepared you are for the event. If you're pretty prepared, you stay pretty focused, because when I talk about preparation, that's long hours in the practice room doing a lot of things that are kind of boring, to be honest with you, but they're important. And the same thing when you're ahead in a large lead, or if you're a big favorite in a match. You know, we could honestly probably say that he was a favorite here. I don't know how big of a favorite overall, because I just don't know Marco, but we do know it's 7-0, so you can get a little complacent, I think. But I think if you're prepared and putting in the time prior to the event, you're going to stay pretty hungry no matter what the score is.
Nice shot there on the 4 from Dorenberg, so still in with a decent chance here. Bit of work to do to get from 5 to 7, but could be 3 racks in a row.
Interesting foul there from Niels Feijen. Not one you're going to see very often. I think he cut the 5 in and let the cue ball come back and hit his hand maybe, or his arm. Couldn't quite get the body out of the way with a big stretch. Wondering if it's something we could see again here in a moment. But nice shot on the 5 there from Marco. Just got a little awkward here on the 7. It's a type of shot on the slick table you can overcut easily. Yeah, just like that. Just something you don't realize how easy the ball's cut if you're not used to the slick table.
Yeah, and you could see there coming round to have a look, and once he had seen, he was a bit crestfallen, because I think he realizes he's left this 7 on, and maybe the little streak he had going is going to be snapped here.
Just barely getting enough on the cue ball there to clear the 9. Get a nice shot on the 8. Probably plays the 9 in the side.
He must take a lot of mental energy out of himself, Styer, with the way he plays. I mean, even on that shot, he seemed to be taking perhaps a little longer than he might have done. Would that be fair, or do you think that was just playing to his rhythm?
Yeah, and it's, you know, you don't want to make something that's routine stressful. And that's kind of like expressed to people. People think you're supposed to be a robot, and I don't really see that in sports. I mean, you do a lot of the same things, but that doesn't mean you have to be, oh, let me make sure I check every part of this checklist. Oh, I did this, I did that. You know, that's just not really how sports really is. I mean, but yeah, maybe a little, you could call it over-focusing maybe at times.
Anyway, whatever he's doing, it's working pretty well for him in this match, because he is now on the hill. Marco Dorenburg did have a chance to make it 3 racks in a row. Wasn't quite able to see it through, and Styer took full advantage. So he now leads 8-2. Alban Ocean is leading 7-0 against David Borkowski. And Jose Alberto Delgado of Spain is even closer to completing a whitewash, because he's on the hill at 8-0 against Christos Papageorgiou of Greece. I didn't really need to say he was from Greece, did I, with a name like that? There's only one place you're going to be from.
It reminded me of Vegas Vacation. I don't know if you remember that movie with Chevy Chase, but his son assumed a fake name so he could get an ID at Papa Giorgio or whatever it was. I can't remember, but Chevy Chase is one of my all-time favorites. You a movie guy, Michael?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Not seen that one.
Really? You know Chevy Chase?
Oh, of course, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's more of our era, right?
Our era? Come on, Jeremy, be a bit kinder to me than that. I wasn't reaching world finals in the 90s like you.
Yeah, right.
Or any other time, indeed. Tyler Styer leading 8-2 here.
The rack didn't sound its best that time. Sounded like a combination throughout the rack, but at 8-2, we won't sweat it too much.
Quite a few one-sided matches in progress at the moment. Oliver Szolnocki, who, as I said, has had 2 good World Championships in a row the last couple of years. 5-0 up on Patrick Mountain. I mentioned Alban Ocean, 7-0 lead over David Burkowski. Throw in this match as well. It's been pretty one-sided. Much closer, though, between Michael Schneider of Switzerland and James Telfer, the British player. Schneider leading just 7-6 in that. Looks as though whatever happens in this rack, Michael Dorenburg will ultimately find himself on the loser's side. And if that is to be the case, he'll play Brian Nielsen of Denmark, who actually came through the previous round without hitting a ball, as his opponent had withdrawn.
Yeah, a little congestion around the rack area here, but it appears there's a pocket for every ball. Looks like he's got a nice angle on the 3 to come 1 or maybe 2 rails up for the pink 4 in the lower left. The 7's a little funny, though. I don't think the 7-9 combination is 2 on once the 4 is removed. It doesn't appear the 7 passes the 8, so he's going to have to work the cue ball from the 6 to the 7. Maybe for the 7 in the right side pocket. Now things are going to change because he got a little thin here on the 4, and I think he has to rub the 9 in some manner.
Eklund Kachi coming here on the back of a good Euro Tour performance last week, and we saw him play really well against Matthew Wrigley, winning 9-3 earlier today. And he's back on the table and playing well again this afternoon in the early stages. Has a 2-0 lead over Pier Francesco Garzia.
And I'm surprised. I know he's very upset to give up a shot here on what looked like a pretty routine safety, but I thought he could attack, and being down 8-2, I thought he would go offensive on that 4. And looks like Tyler has a shot to me. Maybe a subtle swerve. Maybe this is a little bit more to get by the 8 with the cue ball. Watch outside pocket and see you later. That's always a difficult scratch to swallow coming in from that angle off the end rail into the side pocket. It almost requires that light speed, and sometimes it just hits perfectly. Shot here is where you might use a little bit of the side rail pocketing the 6 to make, well, he's going 3 rails, it looks like. I don't know about this decision. He's hit it beautifully. Really easy cue ball movement, so that's a sign of good technique.
Yeah, he's shown good signs, hasn't he? Because early on in the match, when he was frustrated, he wasn't getting into it. We were wondering if he does manage to get a rack on the board and get some chances here, what can he do with them? Well, he's looked absolutely fine. Okay, he's missed a few here and there, and perhaps hasn't got the speed of the table quite right at times. But overall, he's shown he's a capable player. And it's one of those where you just wonder if he had managed to win a rack earlier in the match, what might have happened then? Because it looks as though he's going to make it 3 of the last 4 here. He was 7-0 down. He's still got such a long way to come back in this match. But he's got another one on the board. Tyler Styer remains on the hill at 8-3. Styer does come through, may well play Alex Kazakis. That'll be a tough one in the next round, although Kazakis is yet to start his match against Vincent Gomez of Austria. Patrick Mountain has finally managed to win a rack against Oliver Szolnocki, but still a long way behind at 5-1. And Jose Alberto Delgado has completed the whitewash with a donut. A 9-0 win over Christos Papageorgiou. Michael Schneider on the hill now at 8-6 against Britain's James Telfer.
And he trailed early in that match to Jim, and I was a little surprised that Michael's brother, who's come a ways in here in his professional pool career, Daniel Schneider, now actually resides in Texas, back in the U.S. I'm surprised he didn't make this trip. Really, really improved player that has had some nice showings here this year. And giving up the table here in the 12th rack. Could see the end of the run on the winner's side for Marco. Pretty easy layout overall. Now Tyler can handle pretty much any angle on the 4. He'd like to get over on the right, near the right side rail. That way he comes a couple rails just left of the 6 to play the purple 5 in the right middle. No reason to get much closer to the 4. Looks like he's trying to get a little closer to it.
It hasn't been a great run for Alban Ocean since he was beaten in that World Championship final by Shane Van Bonen and Milton Keynes back in April. But he has had a very good day today. Played very nicely in his 9-4 win over Sander Kont. And he's now 8-0 in front against David Borkowski. So 1 rack and 1 match away from the single elimination stage.
Tyler caught that a little thick, the 4 ball, and no, I guess it was it 2018 that Alban didn't make the team, where Niels did, I believe that, or maybe it was the next year in 2019, but people were questioning Alban's game, and I'm like, you don't have to worry about him just because he maybe didn't have the awesome year like he always has. He's going to be just fine. Just doesn't stay away from big results for very long.
Yeah, the thing with the Moscone Cup, it's only 5 players on each team, so it's so hard to keep making it year after year. Tyler Steyer's been involved in a few of them. He's won a couple. And it looks as though in the next few moments he's going to win this match. And you look at a player like Styer, who's got a lot of ability and hasn't quite lived up to it, Jeremy. You ask the questions, well, what does he need to improve on? Now, he'll face tougher challenges, but on the basis of the way he's played in this match, not much really needs to be improved.
No, I mean, he's maturing without us even knowing it, I think, more than we would know. Sometimes, you know, can't always the physical and mental just go along together. One is